Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So, whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track. Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest today is Lisa. Lisa's here with me, and she's going to share about herself, which, Lisa, is what I always want you to do because nobody can tell your story like you can. So I want to welcome you to the show. And would you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, whatever you're comfortable sharing?
Well, first, I want to thank you for having me. To get into my story, I come, or actually who I am, I actually come from the professional side of, if you think import racing, front wheel drive cars. So I was one of the pioneers over in California when we were amateurs, when, we were just the kids on the streets. We came together. We actually banded with NHRA as well and had our own series. So I do have plenty of Wallies, but I'm one of the pioneers that started this front wheel drive and import game, and we made it nationwide. I've been all around the country. I've been to Antigua. I've been to Puerto Rico. I've been on their track. I've been everywhere. I am proud to own 4 world championships, 2 runner-up championships, and when there was an elusive 7-second front wheel drive, because nobody thinks of Hondas or anything with a big tire on the front to run 7s. That was the big bounty, and I took that bounty. So I am also in NHRA's timeline history books as the very first front wheel drive in history. So I had a very colorful past.
That's exciting, though.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where did that love of motorsports start? How did you get interested and even know anything about motorsports?
Well, from motorsports, I grew up. My family was very big. It's bad to say, but I'm going to have to say it's the truth. My father was a big street racer. So, being that I moved from California, I'm now in Kissimmee, Florida. I still have everything over in my house in California, but I have my baby book that my mother had made. When you make, first steps, first this. I was 2 weeks old at the street races, and it said, Lisa saw Daddy win $20 against a Chevy. So
Oh,
I
that's so cool.
so it started like that, and then as I got older, they would take me to the street races. There used to be over in off of it, I grew up in California, so down in the Alhambra area there was it was called Zodi's, and that's where everybody would meet up, and then the street races would start, and I would be there obviously with my family, and they weren't able to get me out of the car, so my father was forced to get me a helmet, and I'd sit in the back seat. My father was street race. So now, I'm like 4 or 5 years old. And I just took on the love, of just, I think I'm not there's some that love to work on the cars. That was never something, I mean, I could do it. However, I always say that there's better people that can surround you to make a great team. So I had better that worked on cars or worked on my vehicle. So I never picked up I could change brakes type of thing, change tires. I can fix a flat. I could do that. But I was more of the adrenaline junkie. I don't know how to
Okay.
say it any better. I still am to this day an adrenaline junkie.
Wow, that's awesome. So, you're 4 years old, you're riding in the back of your dad's car for a street race.
Yeah.
What else have you done? Tell me your story from there to where we are today.
Well, my story started back when, all that happened. We did a lot of, because the generation like where we started with the Hondas and stuff like that, it was everybody thought it was like this revolution of these import kids, and it was always a domestic import rivalry. So as growing up, 18 years old, I bought my first car, put nitrous on I had a Volkswagen Fox. I put nitrous on it. So we had our own portion of the street races that we would go to. We wouldn't go hang out with the domestic cars. We had the import side. So you now have us all, intermingling, mixing with a lot of issues because it was still not accepted that something that would put the big tire on the front would be on the streets with any kind of a power adder of any sort. So a lot of times, like we would go, they had car hop, like they called them car hops. I would bring my Civic amongst all the domestic guys, but because my father was so good friends, and it was, because a lot of people at the high school used to cruise, so my parents would do that, and they saw me grow up, so they would accept me to come in. So I made a lot of domestic at the time when it was unacceptable, domestic friends. And I would be the only import there. I'd be the only front wheel drive. So then they started getting, more and more questions started coming out, because now you got this 4-cylinder that's turbocharged, and they don't understand turbocharging. It wasn't a big thing back in the late 90s. It wasn't a big thing for any cars. And the import crowd, which was us, had pretty much, we were either nitrous or we were turbocharged. Turbocharged was like high end right there. And I was a turbocharged street car. Thing ran 13s on the streets, and we're talking like 30 years ago. So that's how that started and evolved. And then we got into racing. We used to go to Palmdale. Palmdale was up in Lancaster in California. So everybody go up there, you mix the domestics, the imports, stuff like that. You mix them. And then people just started becoming friends. But there was such a revolution of imports coming in, so many coming in, that there was somebody that said, okay, because we would go to the streets right after. So there was somebody that says, you know what, we're going to make a sanctioning, we're going to try this out. The line was clear down the street. So we were still amateur. This was just kid stuff, we'd have fun. We'd go to the track and go race, and then, meet a bunch of people and like-minded individuals that we were at the street races that we'd see. And, it kind of like a band. It was very weird. It was like a big family. And then we would go racing, and then we'd go to the street races, and then we'd have another place on Saturdays we'd go race, and that was down in Carlsbad, which is down by San Diego. So we'd go down there and race, and a lot of the tracks, actually we would go to Big Willie's stuff, and that was Long Beach, not LACR, Terminal Island. So we would kind of travel. We knew where all these guys were, so we'd go to those tracks too. So fast forward back up to where they decided they wanted to make a sanctioning event. It was because the imports were kind of, we were the redheaded stepchildren, not going to lie. So we made our own sanctioning. Frank had made Battle of the Imports, which was our own sanctioning, and it was only for import cars, so we could have fun. So we did that, and it was so wild. It was just a bunch of 20-year-old kids running around with no supervision. So we did that. And then from there, it just started growing and growing. And it was like wildfire at the time. So you're talking, this is like 1994. So around 1990, it was at SEMA, because there was other, now since Frank had started Battle of the Imports, there was other guys that opened up sanctioning events that people would go to. So now you had guys over in, say New York, Jersey, where you had Englishtown, ATCO. You'd have guys down in Texas. So you had Dallas Motorsports, Motorplex. You had Houston Raceway Park. You had like that. So now we're all starting to meet each other, because now you got the magazines out there. And I can remember, I wish it was as fast as it is right now, because it would take 3 months for us to see what somebody's car ran, So we all started a band together, and it was at SEMA, and I want to say it was 1998 was when Mike Ferrara, who was IDRC, came in, had a meeting with us, all the racers at SEMA, and said, well, we got a big package for you guys. Basically, we have TV coverage now. We're going to go and we're going to have a full sanctioning event, and you're going to travel around the country and race for a championship. So therefore, you guys will now be professional. When I tell you, you go from an amateur to professional overnight, it really did happen. So, I mean, it just gives you more drive to go out there and do what you have to do to go chase your dream. We were still chasing our dream at this time. We're like, wow, we're going to go racing, and and to find money to do, all that at the last minute. SEMA's not the place to be looking for a sponsorship for that year. And we managed to hold it down. We had some great sponsors at the time that really believed in us, that were there from amateur days, which was Extrude Hone. And even now, because I'm rebuilding my original OE, like my original car, I'll have Extrude Hone with me as well. So I'll have a lot of my original sponsors, because they were just there for me from day one. Like when I was an amateur, and literally overnight a pro, and then now back into being an amateur, but with a pro's mindset, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. What an experience. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine the stories you could tell.
Oh, when you got a bunch of 20-something-year-olds running around the country with no parental supervision, you have the West Coast. Then West Coast we were wild. Then you get the East Coast and mid states down south. You get us all together, and we were crazy, because we all just found it was like I said, it's not like any other industry, because it was an industry that was formed from the bottom. So the people that were in the stands that would be, the spectators or the fans, they were doing it just like you. Like, we all banded together. So it's almost like when you say a whole industry was built and everybody is family, it made no separation between, say, me as a professional racer and, the guy that was up in the stands with his wife and kids, because we all were there in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. So when people say OG, and somebody from back in the day will say OG, and I'm like, no, but you were there. You helped form this industry to what it was. So therefore, all of us from back in those days would be considered the original, builders of this industry.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That was up to about 2000. What's been happening
Yeah.
in the last 25 years?
Well, 2000 was my first championship, my first IDRC, and then now you got NHRA that steps in. So NHRA came in. So we had different sanctioning bodies. There was a lot of different sanctioning bodies. So I wanted to go run with NHRA, because I grew up around that as well, right? My family obviously being into the domestic side of things, we would go to the Winter Nationals, the World Finals. So I was around nitro cars. I was around all those cars. So I would go, and it seemed very you seemed a very different. You're on a different pedestal if you have a Wally in your hand. So when NHRA stepped in, they told us, "Hey, we're gonna do a sanctioning event with you guys. We're gonna do 12 events." We says, "Okay." So we committed. We'll be there. We'll be there at all 12. There's a championship. My sponsors wanted championships, so I had no choice but to go, do as my sponsors said. So we chose that. And then you also had NHRA, which had turned into NOPI. So I was doing two different sanctioning bodies professionally, two different sanctioning bodies. I couldn't do Battle of the Imports anymore, because my sponsors wanted, with the commitments, they wanted the TV time. They wanted where there was going to be more exposure for the ROI for them. So I followed NOPI and NHRA and NHRA for their years. So I took home with NHRA, I took home 2 runner-up championships. Now, mind you, this spans into 2005, because I had jumped from my Civic, which was my original car. In 2003, I wrecked in San Antonio, wrecked the car. And then that's when a company called Saturn Motorsports approached me and asked me if I just wanted to be just, a pilot, just a shoe, and that's it. They said, we got the budget. The class that they wanted to go for was for that 7-second, first front wheel drive, because now manufacturers are jumping in. You had manufacturer Mopar, manufacturer Ford, Mazda. You had manufacturer, a little bit of Honda, but General Motors was heavily involved, heavily. So Saturn Motorsports wanted to, because there was a big Saturn crowd that had no, they didn't have a flagship. So they wanted somebody that was going to be a flagship for them, because General Motors had, all their guys out there racing, whether it was in, any kind of other form of like discipline in motorsports, and then also in drag racing. So they wanted to do that. Laird owned a few Saturn dealerships, and then GMC, Pontiac, like those as well. So he wanted to make parts for Saturn cars and have those, where people could now purchase product for their Saturn so they can upgrade them body wise, like body style wise, stuff like that for car shows, drag racing. Um, so they approached me and we basically said, hey, they says, here's an open credit card and have at it. So they says the only stipulation was you be the first to run sevens. We're going to beat corporate General Motors. Here's us, a bunch of kids from a Honda, thinking, oh my goodness, we have to go up against corporate General Motors. That is no joke. Like, you are not like, we are just a Saturn dealership. We're representing a Saturn dealership, and they put the pressure on us. And we said we'll do it. We could do it. And actually, it happened down here. The first 7-second pass was me down here at West Palm Beach. Moroso was the first 7-second pass. I ran 796. And then the next day, because you have to back it up within 2% of the record within that event. So I ran an 800 something. So I had backed it up within the 2%. So I was able to take the record. Now, mind you, General Motors, during qualifying, I ran out first qualifier. I ran 7. General Motors had an issue. General Motors came back second round of qualifying, ran 7.9. So now him and I were battling to who was going to back up this 7-second pass. So Nelson and I battled and battled. I took, for that event, I was so hard pressed to make sure that I was going to do everything right, that I reset the track record, reset the speed record, qualified number 1, took all the points, won the event. I wanted everything to do with trying to take it, but I was the first one to actually back it up. And Nelson and I were in the finals together. And that's when I ran 8.0, and he didn't back it up. I think he ran like 8.1 or something like that. You're talking 20 something, 21 years ago. So I knew that I was the first one to back it up. So it was a big deal. NHRA presented me with a jacket of the first 7-second front wheel drive. Mickey Thompson gave me a jacket of first 7-second front wheel drive. A week after that, we went to Nopi, which was another sanctioned event that we ran. And they had a bounty of $10,000 who ran the first 7s, because these pro front wheel drives were the hot ticket. So we went up there, we ran 7s all weekend, and backed it up. So we got to take home not only the winning paycheck, we took home $10,000 as a bounty. I liked glorious. When they said we had to do it, and we had to do it against General Motors, and we had to, run 7s before corporate GM, and we said we do it. We said it. We did it.
Yeah. What an amazing adventure you've been on. I'm just sitting here just listening, because I can't even think of what to say to ask you. I just think it's so cool what you've done.
It was
awesome.
Easy. It was, but like I was taught from my sponsors, I guess you learn that sometimes you have to be smoke and mirrors. Don't let nobody see, don't let anybody see the frown. You just go out there and you just keep pushing. And that's all we did. I myself kept pushing. I didn't think at any point, that I would be at, back then as successful. Heck, I would have thought that even 20 years later, I still have an opportunity to say, come on a podcast. You don't think that, but it's great because I did leave great memorable impressions to people out in the motorsport community. So I'm always humbled by that, and I'm always very thankful for that.
Yeah. So what are you up to now, Lisa?
I moved down here because the Motorsports is huge. My race car, my original Civic, is down here. He's on a very slow, because I'm adapting to life. It still takes a little bit to adapt to life down here. I run a shop over here in Kissimmee, O&J Performance. So I manage the shop. I go to certain events, where we have selling events. So I go do that while I'm still building my car slowly, so I could come out and just have some fun. There's no money on the table. There's no nothing. It's more of like I like to say, it's more of the appreciation and the love that I have for the industry. That's why I would bring my Civic after I wrecked it. I didn't think he would be able to be fixed. And after I wrecked him, I put him away for 20 years, and people kept telling me, please come back. Please. I have so many people that beg me, please come back, please come back. And I was like, okay, well, if this is possible, I'll do it. And they said, your car is fixable. It's repairable. We're going to pull a dent and we'll put a new cage in there. I'm like, that's it? Okay. slowly doing that. But I have a lot of fun of meeting. Remember, all the racers, all the ones that I'm surrounded with now are not. About 95% of them are not the ones that I grew up racing with. So it's still trying to, figure them and get used to them, because I can they're I'm very very loud the way I talk. So I don't want to. They're very not quiet, but they're just a little more reserved than me. I'm like, boy, the boys trained me well back when I was racing. How I have to be, the no
Yeah.
board unapologetically myself.
Well,
So
you had to hold your own at
I,
that time.
oh yes, they
Yeah.
they knew better. Everything was done behind. There was an issue.
Yeah.
It was squashed real quick.
So Lisa, how would your life be different if you had not been involved in motorsports? I mean, it's been your love and your life. What do you think you would have been doing had that not happened?
My well, when I was in high school, I was in AP courses. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a defense attorney.
Really?
Uh-huh. But
That would be an interesting life as well.
yeah, considering
Yeah.
how I am, very interesting. I
Yeah.
wanted to do it on the pharmaceutical side, to represent like on the pharmaceutical side of things. So yeah, that was something I wanted to do, and I'm glad my friends told me I was just too stupid to go and do that.
I
Because
doubt I doubt that that's true at
yeah,
all.
well, I turned to something else, and I was able to put and I would have never thought that racing, like, I dreamt of, like, I dreamed I wanted to go drag racing. I knew, but that was something. I mean, as a child, you thought you watched. Like I says, when I would go to Winter Nationals and the finals, I have a sister. So Stephanie and I used to go over because we used to see Shirley Muldowney. So we used to go over, and we were little girls. Like, I probably
Yeah.
was 10. So that would make Stephanie like 7 or 8. And we would go over there just to get her autograph. To this day,
Hmm.
I think Shirley thinks I'm crazy because I call her mom. And she like looks at me, but I don't think she understands an impact that she
Yeah.
made as a child. So that inner self that you don't think about shines through.
Yeah.
I guess it came through. I wanted to be a lawyer, but it didn't pan out for me. And
Yeah.
I ended up in.
So what are some things that you think you've learned, life, I call them life lessons, that from motorsports that maybe you wouldn't have learned either as early or even at all, because I think motorsports teaches so many things, especially to younger kids. I talk to so many young gals, and they're all 90% of them are so much more mature for their age and things. And it's because of being involved in motorsports. What do you think that you've learned and is part of you now because of your involvement in motorsports?
I learned actually because, again, we were young kids and we were dealing with people that were older than us and training us to be a certain way. So I think I've learned I've learned how to, I guess, say the right words. Sometimes words come out of your mouth, or you want to do some you want to act out on something because you find it unfair. I've learned that I just watch and I keep an eye, and then I see how I could fix things. Like, how can I fix this? I take everything into account. So the maturity level, yes, absolutely. I want to say that it taught me so much. I mean, when you're thrown into just having to learn, like, even to learning how to work with a sponsor, you're walking in and you got these people that are going to give you money, but you don't know, how do you know how to act? It's not even like a job interview that you go into. They're either going
Right.
to like you or they're not. So you got to learn to be a chameleon is what it is. That's the word that I always use, was chameleon. I could fit into any situation. Any situation. You could put me inside of a room full of corporate people, and I could adhere. And you could also put me into a room with all the guys, and I could adhere. So I
Mhm.
learned to be a chameleon in motorsports, and I learned just how to value and how to keep an eye on everything, a very close, watchful eye on everything, because you're learning how to do your own budget. You're learning how to drive across country. At that time, we didn't have phones, so I had to learn how to read a map so I can read a Thomas guide. You have to, with the budgeting, you have to buy a truck. So now you're going to learn about insurance. You're going to learn about the specialty insurance that you had for your race car. You're going to learn about, every single thing. Like, there's so much that you learn, and I guess I would never, ever, ever say I would trade this for anything, because even what I can't think of right now off the top of my head, so much that I've learned thrown in, because it's sink or swim. So when it's fight or flight, sink or swim, you're either going to sink or swim. And I'm still here. So I swam. I might have, dipped under a couple times, but there was a lot of people that would pull down and grab me and pull me out of the water. You know what I mean? You learn what friendships are. You learn the value of friendships. You learn the value of sportsmanship and how not to be a sore loser. I did that in the beginning. It wasn't a loser. I wasn't mad because I lost. I was mad because my car didn't fire up on the line, and I was actually pulled aside. This happened twice. I was actually pulled aside by not even a sponsor. I was still an amateur, and his name was Kirk Miller. He ran AEM, or he was one of the owners of AEM. He told me, he said, "Lisa, never let anybody see your emotions." And I didn't understand. Well, I remembered I was so mad my car didn't fire up before going in the water box. I threw my helmet inside the car. I was angry. So I learned you got to control your emotions. Never let anybody see your cards. I'm very, when I have to be, I'm very good at that. Very good at not letting anybody see my cards. Chameleon. I'll blend into anything. Even if I didn't say, for example, if I didn't like somebody, I could still stand and talk to them without them even knowing that I'm not a fan of theirs. I just don't rock with them.
Yeah.
So I've learned, there was a lot of things. I grew up quick, and I do not take that for granted. I try to always use that. I may not be a professional driver now, but I was doing that in my 20s, and those are still impressionable years of your life. Most people were in college. I wasn't. I was racing around the country. Learning valuable lessons, how to act in front of Matco tools. They pulled me aside. I didn't know that you don't wear blue jeans with your uniform, that you need to wear black pants. You are representing Matco tools, and you have all of their people out there in Las Vegas. We had to do a Matco tools event. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. So you learn the hard way, and the guy and sponsors and people knew that they could talk to me, and they didn't have to worry about my feelings being hurt. If they were going to say it, if they had to use the chew out words, they were going to use them.
Yeah.
And I didn't take any heart to it. Or offense. I just took it as, okay, this is a lesson. Never do it again. And it never happened again. Even to this day, people laugh that because I still, to this day, when I have to go to an event, we'll wear black pants.
Mm-hmm.
Pants.
Yeah.
If I don't have.
You learned well, that's for sure.
I picked up, and it's what they want, then you do it. You're representing them, so never let them down, because they aren't letting you down. So it was a respect. I guess it's mutual respect as well.
Yeah. So do you have an unforgettable moment? I know the 7-second thing had to be at the top. Do you have any other moments that come to mind right away that are just, at the top, things that just really mean a lot to you, or that you'll never forget how you felt when something happened?
My goodness, there's a few. It would be my wreck. Never forget my wreck.
Yeah.
First championship, the 7th pass. And I think the first time when I run, I always say it was very, it was a different feeling. It hit differently. When they brought my car as the first car from the United States down to Puerto Rico to race, and there weren't women doing it. So it was a very, tears never came from my eyes, except for when I was down there, because it was just a welcoming, the way it was, the whole event, hands down, was just unforgettable. I wish that we had more cameras. I wish it was more like now. It would have been. I can only, if I try to explain it. There's people that remember seeing me race down there, and they're like, that event was crazy. I says,
Mm-hmm.
oh my, it was so crazy that they had to bring me through the side gate because I couldn't go through the normal staging lanes. There was so many people on top of me, and I was scared being a female, and I'm over
Yeah.
here, male dominated industry to begin with, and then I'm going into someone else's territory. So I told my team, do not put stanchion posts, do not do nothing. You let, they want to stand on the roof of the car, you let these guys stand on the roof of my car. I don't care. So we did that, and it was different from being like, say, Englishtown, Atco, down here in Florida. It was different down in Puerto Rico racing physically. So I think that's one, because I want to go back as well. I want to, when the car's done, I think I want to go to different countries to race him. I've raced throughout the entire United States. So I'm definitely going to put it up for where he would be able to travel to different countries to go race.
So what's your timeline look like? When will we see you back on track?
If all goes well, it'll probably be, I would say mid late next season.
Okay.
I'm just waiting on one part. It's just literally one part I'm waiting on to be made. So therefore I could drop the engine in. Engine's ready to go. Drop the engine in and start doing all the fab work. I could get my turbo, I could get everything rolling,
Mm-hmm.
with the what I've worked out with people. I could get all that going and instantly, boom, just hit the track, go testing, relicense,
Okay.
everything. Because my car in its body right now is really defying its physics. It's a non-chassis car and they run sevens. I would be happy to run 8.0s, and if I dip into a 7, I'd be happy. But the last time the car ran, it ran 880. So if it ran 870, he's still done better than what he did when he retired himself into a wall and brought me. So just to,
Absolutely. So not far away.
no. I just wait for
No.
that one part, and then after that, it's just rocking and rolling. You know what I mean? Like I got guys on deck ready to go that are like, 1 week, get everything there. We'll just assemble the car. We'll start it. We'll go, day 1 to day 7, we're testing, and
Yeah.
I'm ready. We're just gonna have a few things, like I have to go through the transmission, but everything else, as soon as I can get the mid plate, because I'm having that mid plate cut. As soon as we can do that, fit it, we can actually, get the mid plate in, and then we could mount the transmission, and then drop the engine in. Get the axles will be no problem. Measure up the axles, get the axles in, and then boom, fabrication, and then you start going from there. Because everything, hard part wise, engine wise, done. It's
Yeah.
just the car sits. He's sitting in storage, basically like, Mom, what are you doing? You come visit me every couple months. I'm like, you your own apartment, son. We're grown now.
So how can we keep track? Well, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, they want to keep track of you and how the progress is going, where would we go to do that?
Well, I do have my main hangout is IG, so that's at Lisa Kubo Racing, and then I'm trying to get playing on the TikTok, so I go on TikTok as well, and that's the same thing. All my handles are all Lisa Kubo Racing, so everybody
Okay.
find me across that.
Okay.
You might find me popping up somewhere.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Lisa, I've just been so interested in your story. I'm so glad we could connect and you could be on the show. You
Thank
know, there's so many women that have fallen in love, they're passionate about motorsports, and they all have a great story, and yours is one of them. And it's funny because I've had a couple different people who have said, well, I said, oh, I interview women that are involved in motorsports, and they think the stories are all the same. Their moms, their wives, they're this, they're that, their dad raced, whatever it is. And I'll be like, oh no. I said, a lot of stories that might be true of the facts, but the story is still always different. Everybody's story is
you.
different. When they started, how they started, who helped them, where they are now, all those things. And yours is as unique as anyone else's. And I just appreciate that you took the time to be on and share with my listeners.
Oh, I appreciate. I really do. I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness, yes, and anything to always, no matter what discipline in motorsports, we're still in motorsports. We all,
That's right.
uh,
That's
we all stand up for each other. If there's a girl that's over in road racing that's having an issue, well, us girls in drag racing are still going to see it. We're still going to jump to her defense. So
true.
women
So
stick
true. Well, thank you so much again for being on and taking time to be with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope you get that car put together very quickly so that
together.
you can get started at the beginning of the season, not the middle.
Oh, please. Yes, and I do appreciate you doing this for us women out there, just keeping our voices out there, keeping our voices heard. Us ladies are in motorsports. We're not going nowhere.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Lisa. Hang on while I end the recording.
Okay, thanks, Melinda.
That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel, in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind the scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.